Hi, this is Brennan LaBrie, Kidreporter, and in a second I will be interviewing Rick Antonson, President and CEO of Tourism Vancouver. So what do you do as the CEO?
Well, Brennan, I've got the best job in town, and this is such a great town, I've probably got the best job in the world. So our role as Tourism Vancouver is to invite the world to come and visit this part of the globe. And so we do that working with tour operators in other countries. We do it working with Tourism British Columbia or the Canadian Tourism Commission to make sure that we're advertising together. So whether it's visitors coming from Japan or coming from Germany or the United States or South America, our job is to invite them and then make sure they have an exceptional experience when they're in Vancouver.
And so what does Tourism Vancouver, what are they going to be doing, what have they been doing for the Olympics?
Well, we've been involved since the ideas were floating around about the let's bid for the games. So people in Whistler and in Sport BC and Tourism Vancouver, lots of people said, wouldn't it be exciting to have the Olympics here? Back in the mid-1990s, but it's even more important to go back a little further. About 50 years ago, people started dreaming about having the Olympics in Whistler and then adding Vancouver on. So this is a vision that has been going on for generations of family. It's an ambition that is decades old. There were two other bids to try and bring the Olympics to this part of...
What countries?
Well, there are two other bids from Whistler and when it was called Garibaldi that tried in earlier years to win the Olympics. So this bid, which was launched in the mid-1990s, was successful finally in 2003 in winning the rights to host the Olympics in Canada, in Vancouver and Whistler. So that was a huge achievement.
So if it was in 2003, they already had planned where the Torino Games were going to be?
Good point. Actually, when we first launched the bid here as Canadians to say bring it to our country, the next games were going to be in Nagano in Japan. Following that, they'd be in Salt Lake City in the US. Then they were going to Torino. So we thought there was a really good possibility that they would come back to North America because of the big broadcasting audience, all of those reasons, and that because Salt Lake City would have just done an exceptional job as they did, we thought there was a good chance for Canada to win.
Oh, yeah. And so, when did you first come to this job as CEO?
I've actually had the good fortune of holding this position for about 17 years now. It's a long stint. You know, part of it was once we saw what the country was doing to bid for the games, and then once it was announced that Canada had won the games and they'd be in Whistler and Vancouver, it really became exciting to watch it get organized by the Vancouver Organizing Committee and just see the community come together and everybody, every age, put their fingerprints on this, and it's pretty exciting.
And so, you said you have the best job in the world. What is your favorite aspect of it?
You know, I think probably is the chance to work with my fellow citizens and other people who have ideas about how we can host the world, and you hear people again, you know, whether they're young or they're senior citizens that get very proud of being in the Pacific Northwest, and they say, you know, when the world's watching, when they're coming, and you look around the Olympics, this is our time, and when the world comes and then the world leaves, we want them to come back again, and they will come back again because the people here make them feel welcome. You know, in the average Vancouver school, there are 41 different first languages spoken. And so in Vancouver, the mix of peoples from all over, I mean, Vancouver's been talked about as the world in a city, that it's here. And anyone from wherever they live, if they're here and they're in Vancouver, if they want their comfort food, if they want their own religious services, if they want to hear somebody speak the language they know from when they're at home, they can find that in Vancouver. And that's a real blessing because it really does mean you become the world in the city.
Well, I've been impressed with this city.
What have you liked best about it?
I really like the style, how everybody seems to dress nice, and I'm that sort of Virgo sort of person, and I like the buildings, but I really like how there's so many people from all over the world, and when I talk about foreigners, I keep thinking to myself, oh, we're foreigners too. But
That's actually a really neat insight, because one of the things that would happen if you stand on a street corner, if you walk a few blocks and just listen, you'll probably hear 10 or 12 different languages spoken every day, and you'll look at signage of one building and it might be from South Korea, and next to it might be signage that's in Spanish, and next to it may be signage that's in German. So it just filters all over. But what do you think makes Vancouver so special? If you add the people and the architecture, what do you think makes us specially able to hold the Olympics?
The pride. You guys all have such pride. How the city's a very nice city, so the athletes and the people who come to see the games from around the world can enjoy it. And it's also a beautiful country and a beautiful part of the world here, so that's another good reason.
Well, now, when you said that sometimes you can feel like a foreigner when you're here, do you get the sense that sometimes we as residents do, that really nobody's a foreigner when they're in Vancouver? Everybody can kind of feel at home. Do you sense that?
Yeah, I feel really comfortable on the streets. And even though I've been here 2 days, I just am already feeling at home. I am.
Is this your first trip here?
Yes.
Okay.
A guy earlier, he gave us, we've heard that in Vancouver people are supposed to be very generous. And this morning, just to prove that, we didn't have any Canadian money for the parking meter. And so this guy gave us 48 minutes on a parking meter because we didn't have any Canadian money. The generosity of the people has been incredible here.
Well, one of the things that I think is true of not just Canadians in this corner of our country, but the American and Canadian relationship that is in the entire sort of Pacific Northwest, is that we share a lot of similarities, and part of it is that welcoming, part of it is that we like people to feel comfortable and feel safe, and we like, when there's been a visitor there, them to come back. And I think, we share our indigenous peoples. Before the border was there, a lot of the art is very similar between sort of the Washington State and British Columbia Native peoples, because it's such a high caliber and it's so beautiful. So there are many similarities, but I would say one of the most common similarities would be the people, and just that sense of, we're really happy to live here, we're happy you came to visit, and we think you want to come back.
Yeah. Well, I have one more question. Will you be going into any of the games?
I have the good fortune to be going to the opening ceremonies. I'm going to take in a couple of hockey games, and we're hoping, of course, that in the final for the men's gold and the women's gold, that it's the United States and Canada in both of those in the gold.
Well, I've read newspaper articles how Canada really, Canada's really hoping to win, how they're really working hard, and how U.S. really is doing the same thing. So I'm really excited about the competition.
Well, and we wish your team an exhilaratingly close second place finish.
Yeah, and what sport are you most looking forward to?
Well, hockey is like religion in Canada, but winter sports define us in so many different ways as a country, and not just region by region, but all across the country. There's a great respect for the athletes that are going to be competing. So we're looking forward to seeing Canadian athletes on the podium, sort of series after competition after event, and whatever it is, there is a very strong fan base all throughout the sports. We each have our favorites, but we all love winter sports.
Right. So thanks for watching. This is Brennan LaBrie, Kidreporter. I just interviewed Rick Antonson, President and CEO of Tourism Vancouver. I'll see you next time.